Okay, hello dear tea friends from around the world, and especially big hello to my tea friend in Canada, Elizabeth, since you are so far the only one to have subscribed to this event on Facebook, but I think more will join us along the way. So thank you very much for coming to my little video, and today we are going to talk about how to age tea. And before we wonder how to age, maybe this will come later actually, we will start with the question of how to choose the tea that we want to age. And okay, so I see Elizabeth has joined. Thank you very much. So far I see that you were the only one to said you are definitely coming, so I'm very glad that you are here. And so today's event actually was inspired by a student of mine, Antonio, who I don't think I'll reveal too much of a secret. He will become a father soon, and he wanted to make something special that every father is tries to do, is to transmit of some of his values. And so he's thinking of a tea that he would like to purchase for his baby, and in the prospect of when his child is old enough to appreciate it, he can one day share this tea with him or her. This I don't want to reveal too much. That will be for him to say. But anyway, so this reminded me also of one of the very first reasons why I purchased tea for the long term. It was also for the for the coming birth of my son, and at that time I collected some pu'er. That was in 2003, but also had some Rongshui Oolong from that time. That was from the Dongling competition, and both have done very well over the years, and I'm very glad. And actually, another thing I did at that time, that was also still some remains from my European culture, let's say my French culture. With my father, we also bought some wine for my son, 18 bottles that he will receive on his 18th birthday. And we did the same, of course, for my daughter 2 years later. And both have a tea, and both have a wine that they will receive for their 18th birthday. So the birth of a child is a good opportunity to think long term, something we don't usually do, and try to make a special gift for our child, something that will become better over the years, and that he will enjoy, and also be able to share some of the joy that we have when we're doing tea. Because actually aging tea is not such an easy thing to do. So it requires commitment into some space. When you live in a big city, big city means in a small apartment, then you don't have so much space, and it also means that you have to take care of the tea, that you always place it in a good location, that it won't become too hot, that it will not pick up smells, not dust, etc., etc. So it's there's a little job of maintaining the tea, and whereas if you buy tea that you are going to drink within the next 6 months, you don't need to be so careful and so committed to tea over the long term. Also, life every year there are some people around us that pass away. So we never know exactly when our term is, so it's also not so, let's say, we cannot always think so much in advance that we'll have so 40 years to wait for aging a tea, because yeah, life is short, and it sometimes its end comes more faster and more unexpectedly than we think. Okay, knocking on wood here. Okay, but let's go back to some to what interests us. So, how to choose a tea for aging? Now, let's go in order, one by one, into the 6 different tea categories that there are, and we'll look at the opportunities and problems of each of these categories. Now, let's first start with green tea. Green tea. Now, most of the people will say, "Oh, green tea, definitely you cannot age green tea after 1 year. It's the nice smells are gone, and the new green tea will always smell better than an old one." Well, there's a lot of truth to that, and definitely green tea is not very high on one's list of aging tea. But if you like green tea a lot and you happen to have too much of one, maybe don't throw it away. Try to age it. Now, for instance, this is actually what happened to T. Parker. He purchased some green tea a long time ago, like over 30 years. And when he brewed it first, he did not really like it because he brewed it the oolong way. At that time, he was not yet T. Parker, just a young Padawan, Chijongxian. And so he put the tea away, aside, kept it well, but did not touch it much. And when he came back to it many years later, he found out, oh, actually, it's still very nice and very interesting. And that's how we were able to taste his Longjing from 40 years ago and 30 years ago also, that has evolved a bit similar to Pu'er, but in a much lighter way, but also with lots of woody notes and a very dark brew, but still not completely dark, and the leaves turning green again. I've done a similar experience with some Bilochun I got from like 15 years ago, and I'm aging it in this pewter caddy. There's not much left, but amazingly, well, this Bilochun still smells very fine, and it's the freshness is really very well preserved in this pewter caddy. So I'm doing my own experiment to see how to age a little bit of green tea. So it's not much, and here there's not much left also, but I'm really sorry. My eyesight is not good enough. I cannot read your messages. I will try to get to them later on. No, I really cannot. Okay, so green tea. If you like green tea and you have some left over from, especially from a good harvest, a good batch that you like, this might be a good opportunity to age it when it starts to decline and new fresh green teas come. You can try to age it and drink the fresher ones and see how it becomes. Don't put too much hope into it. The idea is we want to drink something that will bring us joy in 20-30 years or whenever we choose to drink it. Because so my idea is that we want to choose a tea for drinking, because there's another way of choosing a tea for aging. It's for investment. Right now, for instance, the market for pu'er in China is really very, let's say, hot. A Tong 7 cakes of 85, 82, so 35 years old, are worth 2.8 million Taiwan dollars. That's that's about 90,000 US dollars for 7 cakes. So a cake is really much more than 10,000 US dollars. That's a very good return on investment. Probably matching those on Wall Street, but it's if you buy tea for investing, means you're not going to drink it. You are storing it, and at the end you are selling it. So it's actually you never come to enjoy the tea, because you have it in your possession, but at the end you are not drinking it, you are selling it. So while this might be if you have a lot of tea and you cannot drink it all, it could be a good idea to sell part of it, but it's not what we are really looking here with this in this class of which want to choose a tea for aging, but for aging and drinking, not for aging and selling. This is almost yet another problem, because well, okay, let's short parenthesis. If you want to resell the tea, what will be important is that the customer can acknowledge, believe, trust that it's really an old tea. And for that, like, I still bought one. For the pu'er, the wrapper here, or the tongue, how it looks like, will be essential for the customer to trust, believe that this is really an old pu'er, or this Hong Tai Chang. This mark here is really very important to acknowledge that people can trust. Oh, this is really an old tea. But the aging for investing and aging, so it's a bit a different thing, because like the green tea that I have here, I don't have any paper that can prove that it's 15 years old. It does not come with certificates, etc. So at the end, the value is for yourself. It's not for resale. Okay. Now after green tea, we come to yellow tea. A bit similar. If you like it, you can try. And again, it's not really the most suitable tea because it's very light. Yeah, this is an important point. When you age something, there will always be a loss. So if you start with something that is very weak, over the years, the tea or whatever you age will lose some of its substance. It might continue to lose some water content, or it will lose strength also over the time. In the case of oolong, it will lose some of its aromas, or for most teas they will lose aromas. There will be a transformation. Some newer aromas will also appear, but still there will be ultimately an aged tea can never be as strong as a new one. It can be a bit more concentrate in the sense that the water content might evaporate. This can make it a bit more concentrate, but still there are many other compounds that will go away. So it's always good to start with the tea that has some concentration of flavors. And that's why even for green tea, Bilochun or Longjing, Longjing is well dried. Bilochun is really very small buds. These are the types of green teas that are a bit more suitable than others that are too light for aging. Okay, after green, yellow, we have white teas. Now, white teas can be aged. There are some a lot of also stories in the market that when you aged white tea, it will turn into a treasure, or first into a medicine and then into a treasure. So white tea is also a possibility for aging, but it has the weakness that first, because it's simply a dry tea, not it did not go through any heating to stop the oxidation, it's simply dried. So white tea will be first take a lot of volume. It takes at least twice as much volume as even a Baozhong, or it can take 4 or 5, maybe 10 times more volume than an oolong. So if you are like me, in a small apartment, it's more. It takes more volume. It's more difficult to age white tea simply because of that. And also because it's not much processed, not processed at all, white tea, it's really one of the lightest tea in terms of fragrances. So, and when it loses these aromas with aging, it's really going to be even weaker. So white tea, from this point of view, is not such a good tea for aging. But again, it's also a question of personal preferences. If you really like white tea, then I recommend go ahead and monitor how the white tea ages from year to year, because unlike wine, where if you age a bottle and once you open it, you have to finish it within a couple of days, with tea, you can always open your jar, take a few leaves, brew them, and close the jar, and continue to age the tea and monitor how it's aging. Okay, next, oolong, so partially oxidized tea. Now, this is a very interesting tea to age. First, because the more traditional ones are roasted, so with their low water content, they are able to withstand change in time better. They are also not fully oxidized, so there still can be post-oxidation. It can continue to oxidize a little bit while it is aging, and this creates more new aromas, different aromas that you never get when you simply have a new oolong. Also, especially for rolled oolongs, they don't take much space, and so they have a lot of potential in change. Now, that's one of the teas that I suggested for Antonio, for my student, because I've done an experiment with Hongshui from Lishan that I have collected since the year 2007, and I've stored it in this jar. Now, I think that could be a good tea for me to brew now. Let's get some leaves out of the jar. Okay. I almost drank half of this jar already. Yeah. Winter 2007 from Lishan, over 2000 meters high. Let's preheat the water again. So the good thing with this experiment is really I know that I've put these leaves in the jar in early 2008, a couple of months after I received it. So, and I never, because I cannot roast, I never roasted the leaves again. But nevertheless, they did not turn bad. Actually, they turn much better. They've opened up a little bit. The color has also changed. Actually, it's turning more and more green again. It has a very clean color also. The leaves were tightly rolled, but now we can see them starting to unfurl a little bit. And the smell has started to change into something more aged after 8 years roughly. For the first 8 years it was still very similar to the when I picked it, with these roasted aromas, but now after 8 years, 10, now we are in the 13th year, the roast has almost gone, and new aromas have started to appear. Now, it's by using a porcelain jar, simply. And so in the beginning, I put some wax around, but after a while, in order to monitor, to see how it's evolving, I had to open it, and then I did not take away the wax completely. But yeah, it does require some time, but let's say after 10 years already, you can see a real change in the aromas of the tea. And of course, now the longer we wait, the better. So the advantage of this kind of Rongshui Oolong is the time frame. Within or after 10 years, 8 to 10 years, you really obtain a new tea, something different that you don't have if you simply buy a new Rongshui Oolong. These smells, I never get them in new Rongshui Oolongs. So, and your time frame then is 10 years. So this is a good potential for a rather fast change. Now you can have there are also other oolongs like Oriental Beauty, the traditional style of Oriental Beauty with roasting. Maybe high mountain oolongs, they might change even faster, but provided their roast is not too strong, and provided that you store them also in a jar, not vacuum sealed. But then maybe the long-term potential is not, we don't know exactly how they will turn out if you really store them for a very, very long time. But so you see, if you use a lower oxidation rate, and well, you need a certain amount of roasting, but then if you decrease this, you get more transformation. If you take leaves that are more oxidized, you have less change that is going to happen. So let me jump a little bit to the red tea. Here I have a red tea that I got from the 60s from Russia, from a sample that was kept by their official tea company. I've tasted it. You can find it on the blog, my tasting of this Russian Hongcha red tea from the 50s. And it is it's very interesting, and a lot of pleasure in this tea. But you can I could see that since it was a fully oxidized tea in the beginning, there was no way that this tea could evolve in terms of oxidation. Luckily, it was these teas are well dried, so it did not become too sour with time. But the range of change was not so big. Now, of course, after almost 70 years, this tea again has a lot of much more woody notes, but still sweetness and this acidity. But it did not show the same kind of change as Hongshui Oolong. Yeah. So if you age a red tea, actually it's going to be quite stable for a long time because the leaves are fully oxidized. Now this is an advantage, that red tea is not going to lose too much of its aromas. You can keep it for a long time, but it's a tea that is not going to change so much and be so interesting. So, and it's a bit the same problem with show pu'er. Cooked pu'er is a tea that is processed so strongly, the leaves are almost burnt by the process, that it becomes very, very stable, and it evolves quite slowly, and therefore you're not in for a big change over time. It will become more refined. Some of the process smells will disappear, a bit like the roast aromas disappear for Hongshui Oolong, but its ultimate change is not so much. Okay, I have to be careful now. Okay. And the same actually also goes for very, very roasted oolongs. If the roast is overpowering, overdone on some oolongs, if the leaves are completely dark and almost burnt, carbonized, then the tea also is not going to evolve much, because it has been, let's almost killed by the process, and then it becomes much less interesting to age, because it's not going to change much. So why drink 30-year-old over roasted oolong, if you still have the roast smells, almost like a very newly roasted oolong. So teas that are processed a bit to the max, like fully oxidized, fully roasted, fully cooked teas have less room to change, and therefore I think are less interesting to age. Except of course if you really like chaud pour, then and if you're a daily drinker of chaud pour, then I have some very old chaud pour that show a lot of finesse at the end. Chaud is also a very strong tea that when it loses some of its aromas, it becomes more refined. So there is potential. There's always change in tea. And tea is even when it's over processed, when you almost try to kill it, there's still some life in it. But the most potential is, I think, in medium oxidized and well roasted oolong, like this Ronchet oolong. See the beautiful color. Et voilà, very beautiful orange color. See that? Lucky me. Yeah, very nice Uis one, very nice the sourness that comes together with very sweet notes. Okay, I see somebody post a comment, still cannot read it, too far from the phone. Thank you, I will answer you later on. And it has still life, so even 13-year-old Ronchet oolong still feels vibrant, active, full of life. Yeah, because so the idea is not to choose a tea that is dead, but a tea that is so alive that it will remain alive after many years. So Ronchet oolong has one of the best potential, also because it's rolled, and it can therefore fit small jars in a small apartment. It does not have to be re-roasted if you keep a good eye on the jar and don't put it in a place that where it will pick moisture. And and because it starts with low to medium oxidation level and also good roast, it has the most potential for post-oxidation and for more transformation. Now, yeah, for the roast, like my Ronchet of Shaninchi of this year is also a very good potential, and we have to understand that there are different ways of roasting teas. Almost every roaster uses a different technique. It's more an art than a recipe. You cannot say, oh, I put my oolong for 2 hours at this temperature and then 3 hours at that and then 5 at that, and always do the same. Now every oolong, every batch will require a bit some adjustments, and the roaster will do this with his nose and with his experience. He will, if he does it well, it's those who don't roast well, they usually, very often, they also don't have so much time. Time is money. So, or here the customer wants the most. So, how much? How strong? Okay, they will put a high temperature and maybe a longer time. And if he wants it not a bit less strong, they will shorten the time to still save time. But a very good roast from somebody who is specialized in roasting, he will use a bit lower temperature and extend the time of the roast. And sometimes when he feels, oh, the leaves, they are getting too much heat, he will take them out of the roaster, let them rest, and put them in again after a couple of hours or a couple of days, and continue the roast and in and out several times, but with a lower temperature, to be really careful not to hurt the leaves, not to burn them, and not to kill them, simply put. So this gives it's a bit like when you cook fish. If you can cook at a high temperature on both sides quickly, but then when you eat it, you realize, oh, the inside, the close to the bone, it's might still be raw because you were quick to cook the outside, but inside it's still raw. So like for fish, you have to cook at one point, you have to do it at a very slow temperature, but for a long time, so that even the inside gets the same amount of roast as the outside, and the leaves are really well roasted. Now this reminds me of another reason for aging tea. You should try to get some aged oolong, because if you only drink young oolongs, maybe that's what you like, and you don't know if you like aged oolongs. Maybe you simply don't like it. So try to procure maybe a very small quantity to see if it's something that might interest you or not. Maybe you don't like these smells. I don't think it's possible not to like it, but who knows? And then you can find out if it's something that you want to do for yourself. Let's mix some more. And the other tea that has very good potential after oolong is pu'er. So pu'er, we saw this one is a very good example of a very old tea from the 60s, Chang. And this one is from the early 90s, Luin, Monghai. The reason pu'er is a good candidate is that especially for the high grade, these two teas, they were mostly picked from gushu, from old trees, and that are very powerful, because if these tea trees are able to grow on their own in nature, they must be very strong and develop a lot of natural defenses against insects, against pests, because tea leaves are very yummy. So lots of insects love to chew on the leaves, and therefore yeah, and therefore pu'er, especially gushu pu'er, is a very powerful, very concentrated tea, and this concentration means that even if when it loses naturally strength and aromas over time, there are still enough aromas for aging. It's still going to be powerful tea even after many years. Now, the tea that I purchased for my son 17 years ago has already undergone a lot of change, but I'd say it's changed less than the Hongshe Oolong. So for Pu, actually, change takes more time than for Oolong or for other teas. This is a good and a bad thing. Good thing is if you really look for really the very long term. Like I said, the Baoba, the 8582 cakes from 35 years ago that are now over $10,000 a cake. It took them 35 years to reach this value, and those teas from the 60s actually are, or 50s, Hongyin Luyin from the 50s and 60s are even 10 times more expensive, but then this means they are 70 years old. So it's good to know that you can age a tea for such a long time, but if you are a certain age, maybe like me now, next year turning 50, I don't have 70 years to wait until for my tea to age and become like a Luyin or Hongyin from the 50s. So I have to consider teas that are a bit that can age faster, or where I have some head start, like these Luyin from the early 90s. They're over 20 years old now, and so in another 20 years they'll be older than Baoba. They will be, and since they are very similar in terms of material, the market value is going to be definitely over $10,000 at that time. This is actually what this tea looks like. I brewed some 2 days ago, and I finished it. Now, after 35 years, the leaves have really changed into something very dark, but completely open up. We can see it here, for instance. This tea is again turning light brown, almost green again, and it's flat. It's not completely not show, not it's very clear. Here too, a full, almost a full leaf, very beautiful. And it was already very pleasant now. Now again, I've exchanged with many tea friends who say, "Oh, actually I love the young pu'er, but I don't like the old pu'er. It has some smells that I don't enjoy." So, and especially there are lots of fake pours, fake aged pours in the market because the prices have become so high. So definitely before you start to age a lot of pour, I would recommend that you try at least a little bit of aged pour from a good reliable source like me, and to know that if is this really something that you like, that will be worth spending time and a dedicated place to age, or maybe actually you like a young pour more, and then you don't really need to age pour, or it will be like for many people who have these teas now, just a mistake. Oh, I've forgotten this tea, and well, it was a mistake for them in Taiwan because they bought them very cheaply, and those people who forgot them now made a good fortune a little bit by accident. But if you are again a tea fan and you drink tea, we don't do this for the profit, but to enjoy, because, and the reason we still have to plan to age it ourselves is, as I said, the prices of these aged pours or even the aged oolongs now have gone through the roof, at $10,000 a cake for pour from the late 80s, or $100,000 for Hongyin Luin from the 50s. These are prices that very few of us will be able to afford when we are retired. So the best way to drink such teas is to age them ourselves. Start when they are still affordable. So with pours, advantage is that it can be really kept for a long time, but it's also a bit, its disadvantage is that you have to wait a long time so that it can turn into something good. Also with pour, the disadvantage is might be a little bit more tricky to store it well in the West, where it's a little bit cooler and drier than in Taiwan. Since I'm in Taiwan, I cannot tell you how your pour in the West might age. If it will age as well as as here, probably not, because we still see that with moisture and temperature, teas change faster than without. But for Hongshui oolongs, this actually is an advantage, that a low moisture level and a low temperature will make the tea more stable. So actually Hongshui might be even a better choice in a cooler Western climate than Pura, where we are not so sure how it will turn. Okay. Now, if you still have some questions about what to choose, how to choose your tea for aging. So we saw, start with a tea that is strong, because it's going to lose some strength. Start also with teas that you like. Don't age your tea because people tell you to age it. If you don't like poor, young poor, show poor, why start to age a sheng poor now if it's a tea that does not bring you joy? Same with Hongshui Oolong. Age the teas that you like. If you age them well, almost any type of tea can be aged, but monitor the aging, and therefore start with a bit a larger quantity. And maybe storage is a very difficult or also very large subject. Maybe I will dedicate another lesson to storage, but in a word, very simple. Porcelain is always a safe choice, and that works well with most teas. Pour, you don't even need to store in porcelain. Just simply in its original wrapper is enough. And if it's really getting old, put it in a plastic like this, transparent plastic. And yeah, cheers, because yeah, if you like tea, an old tea is something special and priceless almost. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye. Oh yeah, well, see you then next Saturday at this time. Hope you'll be there. Maybe we'll try to do it on a different channel, since I see the numbers of watchers is still very low, but I don't mind. Anyway, tea is not about quantity, it's always about the quality of the people. And so I'm glad that you have joined me. Maybe we'll do it on YouTube next time. Okay.